Across the world to your desktop or laptop or really expensive cell phone. This is wireless radio. Easy listening day and night.
Right. Okay. Now, for the benefit of people that maybe haven't come across you before, can you give us a little introduction into what you've been doing in the past and how you got into acting?
Right. Let's start. Where did we start? My family came from my family are entertainers anyway. Mm-hmm. My mum was a country and western singer. My dad was a compere, and also my mum was a poet in the 70s and 80s, right through. So entertainment was always in the blood. Mm-hmm. My sisters being dancers. I think for me, I remember being in a school, my old school, and it's quite funny because I was offered the part of the little boy who was in the Christmas Carol. He's the one that stands outside Scrooge's window, and Scrooge shouts down, "Will you go and buy me a turkey?" And I run off and say a few words. And it was fascinating for me. I found it very therapeutic, and I think that's where the bug started. But in that play, funny enough, we couldn't find a turkey, so we had to use a little emu, which is quite funny. So that's where it started. But professionally, it wasn't until I was about 19 when I realised I needed education because I didn't have any qualifications from school that I decided, I want to travel to London and get into drama school. But to answer your question, the acting, the entertainment was in the blood. Mm-hmm. And I travelled around with my parents as well to the pubs. I was underage. I don't think I ever drank. I may have had one lager or something, but mostly it was to sing. Mm-hmm. I used to sing a song called Seven Little Girls in the back seat, hugging and kissing with Fred by. It was twice, wasn't it? I think someone covered that. So it was in the blood, if that answers the question.
Right, okay. Now, we're talking to you today because you've become involved with the Bullets and Daffodils show, which is the story of Wilfred Owen, the World War I poet. Now, how did you get involved in that?
Let me tell you a fascinating story which Dean doesn't know. Many, many years ago, I used to walk up and down the stairs in the library. I was always fascinated by this little model of the trenches and this the glass, which is what would you call it? It's
stained glass.
Yes, thank you, stained glass. I was fascinated, and I've always been fascinated with Shakespeare poetry. But then when I came across the war poetry, I was a bit not skeptic, but I wanted to know more about why would people write about the war? And so I went into a bookshop and I found a book full of letters. And I started reading these letters, which had been written from soldiers in the trenches. And this is no word of a lie. I started to weep and cry because I was so angry on behalf of them, of the pain and suffering these people went through in the trenches. I never knew. Now, I'd known Dean for many, many years. We actually met 21 years ago, and I had to jog his memory. Joking aside. But I've always wanted to work with Dean because I kept seeing flashed on Facebook, Wilfred Owen, Wilfred Owen, Wilfred Owen, Wilfred Owen. And I found out that Wilfred Owen went to my school. Of course, not in the years I went. And we chatted about it, and I couldn't do it because I was doing Bill Sykes at the Floral Pavilion. And then one day he said, "Would you like to do Wilfred Owen at Christchurch?" And I said, yes. I didn't hesitate. I said, yes, because this is a chap I really want to portray. I'm fascinated about his life story, fascinated about his life at the school in Birkenhead. And now I'm getting even more involved in life in the trenches. Because when you look at that, as I've mentioned, I just did not know really what went on in the war. So for me as an outsider, not from an actor, but from a personal point of view, I put it in the back of my head, and I could not understand why people got so upset over war. I couldn't understand why certain people were protesting against the war until I started doing research on YouTube and looking into the lives of soldiers like Wilfred Owen. But now I'm beginning to understand. And as an actor, that's my duty, is to portray that message that Wilfred Owen wanted to say in his poetry.
Okay. Now, from an acting point of view, you're playing a character that, apart from a few staged photographs, nobody really knows what Wilfred was like, what he looked like, what he sounded like. So how have you modelled your role? How do you prepare for a part like that?
An actor once said, there are many, many ways of playing Hamlet, but you have the same lines. As an actor, it's your interpretation. You can do all the research you want. You can dress like Wilfred. You can have the little moustache. You can have the not the helmet, the cap, everything. But at the end of the day, I have to use what I have within me. And it doesn't matter what the audience sees, because if I cry as Wilfred, it doesn't matter whether or not I've got an image of the war or an image of my cat that died many years ago. As long as I'm portraying and conveying the emotion, that's what they're interested in. They want to be followed. They want to follow the journey. They want to come on the journey with me. So from an acting point of view, I'll do all the research, watch all the DVDs or YouTube, and then fill my memory and fill my emotions with some of those experiences. So when I'm playing Wilfred, I'll have everything ready to portray. I'll be living the part. So to answer the question, it doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what's in my head. What matters is what I put across to the audience, bringing Wilfred to life, taking them on that journey, letting them see the pain he suffered and the anguish. That's my duty.
A little bit about the show for people that maybe are thinking of coming to see it on the autumn tour.
Right.
To somebody who hasn't seen it yet, how would you explain the show to them?
I think you'd have to ask Dean and bring Dean in and get Dean's concept of that. But in my opinion, what I see so far, it's really about the life of Wilfred Owen, the experiences his mum had from the letters and from him going off to war. And what, if I'm right, what we're doing in this play is we're going to have each actor sort of living out their own experiences and not communicating with each other. So what we see, what the audience sees, is a sort of, it's an isolated historical autobiography of each character, if you like, sharing their experiences of the war, of their home life, of how they felt with each other. And that's, to me, is like a tableau. And so it gives the audience something to focus on, because sometimes when you go and see theatre, you've got so much going on that you lose focus, and then you're wondering what happened then, what happened then. But if we do it this way, each scene will be isolated, and that means the audience will get an opportunity to focus on that character and be drawn into their world and their experiences, and to weep and cry with that character. So it's going to be done like that. But any historical information you'd need to ask Dean.
Yeah. So if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking, well, should I go and see it or should I not go and see it? What would you say to them?
Go and see it, because this is an opportunity. You see, it's great when you look at Stratford-upon-Avon or Warwick, because they have Shakespeare, and people travel for miles. They have their own, there's a lot of controversy over Shakespeare, whatever, but they'll go and watch the plays. And they have the museums here in Birkenhead. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come and see this, to come and see what Wilfred Owen's life was like. Because I never knew much about him until this museum opened. And I thank God it's open, because it gives the public or people who live in Birkenhead and from miles around an opportunity to come here and find out more about his life. Not just about him, but about many other people that were involved in his life. So go and see it, because you'll get to hear a fantastic singer, Dean Johnson, who writes wonderful songs and also has done a great job of, how can I explain this, taking his poetry, Wilfred Owen's poetry, and turning them into songs. I think that's fascinating. And I think that's an opportunity, but also an opportunity to see a group of actors bring to life the life of Wilfred Owen, and to hear about how he wrote the poetry, the people he met on the journey, about how his mum felt about him going off to war. And overall, it'll be a great theatrical experience.